Do you find experiments, research, or studies in passages easy to understand but still get questions wrong? Here's a strategy to help choose more correct answers. I'll show you what I mean by don't go beyond the passage information and choose answers that directly reflect what is said or shown on an actual MCAT question. This is a typically missed type of question, asking for a prediction based on the data in the passage. They tend to be missed because the word predict makes you want to choose answers that are beyond the data or passage information. Pause the video and take a moment to preview the passage and answer the question on your own before I get into it. You can even click an answer in the interactive quiz. The question is asking what can be predicted from the data in the passage. Even though passage data is referenced in the question, before going to the passage, briefly take a look at each answer choice to get an idea of some specs, like they all mention bacteria and antibiotics, and get some general ideas, like they're all different ideas regarding the passage data. And if you see any answer choices with words or ideas that are fundamentally false, eliminate those before going to the passage. But this may not be readily apparent since they all seem to be only referencing the passage data. Then, after scanning the answer choices for such things, go to the passage, and since the question doesn't reference any specifics in the passage, use each answer choice to guide you on exactly where to go and what to focus on in the passage. Answer choice A says the combination of antibiotics 1 and 2 would result in the greatest number of bacterial death and lowest percent living. In the passage, look for anything that says combination of antibiotics and bacterial death and lowest percent living. And since the question referenced the data, start there. Check any information regarding data, like titles, axes, legends, captions, footnotes, or any text referencing the data or anything about bacterial death or percent living. Now you know that the percents in the table are percent living, from which bacterial death can be deduced. But after scanning the rest of the passage, nothing about the combination of antibiotics is mentioned, so instead of spending too much time thinking too much about this answer, leave it as a maybe and move on to the other answer choices to see if they're easy to eliminate or choose. Answer choice B says some of the remaining bacteria on plates 4 through 6 would be susceptible to antibiotic 1. Focus on remaining bacteria on plates 4 through 6, which have 50s to 70% bacteria still living. And then scan the passage to figure out which plates have antibiotic 1. Plates 1 through 3 have antibiotic 1 and have lower percent living. And since the experiment is using one strain of bacteria, it does make sense that some of the living bacteria on plates 4 through 6 would be susceptible to antibiotic 1, meaning killed by antibiotic 1 on plates 1 through 3, since those plates have lower percent living and thus higher percent death. So this answer is a high possibility, but of course we'll give answer choices C and D a fair processing. Answer choice C says all the bacteria in this experiment have a resistance to antibiotic 2. All would mean 100% or greater would still be living, but there are no check marks in the greater than or equal to 100% boxes for plates 4 through 6, which according to the passage have antibiotic 2. So no, all makes this wrong. Answer choice D says antibiotic 1 would have greater efficacy against the bacterial strain, while antibiotic 2 would have greater effectiveness against the bacterial strain. Efficacy is a measure of how well something works in a controlled laboratory condition, while effectiveness is a measure of how well something works in real life, in real people. Since this passage is solely about testing antibiotics in cultured Petri plates and literally says tested for their efficacy, effectiveness cannot be concluded on, making D incorrect. Now back to answer choices A versus B. Answer choice A was a maybe, but remember, there was no data showing the combination of antibiotics 1 and 2, which means the answer is going beyond the passage, so you cannot conclude on this. It would be a speculation, not a prediction. Predictions can only be made based on concrete data, and no data was provided for this, making it incorrect. And B, the only prediction you can make based on the data obtained in the passage, and the correct answer. To not make the mistake of choosing answers that go beyond the passage information or data, make sure you find concrete data or information in the passage and find an answer that directly matches it, or eliminate answer choices that bring up words or ideas that were not mentioned in the data or passage information. Simple as that.